people reading the Bible. So many of them just read words. They're not reading what's between the lines. They're not reading what this really means. See, the idea that I've run into a lot recently when I point out Old Testament's got 4,000 years, 400 years between, and the New Testament's only 75 years, and really we're only talking about 35 because Jesus Christ didn't start preaching until he was 30. That's a very short time frame. And look how much the world changed the result. But by the same token, look how much the top-down thinking still prevails. It's almost impossible to get rid of that monster because Satan is alive and well. Top-down thinking prevails.
Within use it or lose it, where what I want to do, similar to the grocery store example,
Yeah.
where we drew some parallels. So when we look at the 5 most common mistakes with EVA, I want to draw parallels to the process of becoming your own banker and just confirm with you that those parallels make sense.
Yeah, because they lapse right into the old thinking out there is what it amounts to. One of the items is that the boss is not sold on the idea. What are some of the others? I forget them right now.
They don't make it a way of life.
Yeah, right.
Most managers
they
try
act
to
like
implement it.
It's the same thing as back there when I told you guys, maybe yesterday, about Larry Wilson and how J.B. Conway had Lamar Phillips and I put this on for the agency, and we did it strictly by the book the way Larry wanted it, 4 hours at a time over a 10-week period. Well, there's offices in Montgomery, there's offices in Mobile and so forth, and the guys down there all wanted to do it all at one time. Let's get this over. Well, they make that a way of life? No, they went through the course. It's like people reading the Bible. So many of them just read words. They're not reading what's between the lines. They're not reading what this really means. See, the idea that I've run into a lot recently when I point out Old Testament's got 4,000 years, 400 years between, and the New Testament's only 75 years, and really we're only talking about 35 because Jesus Christ didn't start preaching until he was 30. That's a very short time frame. And look how much the world changed the result. But by the same token, look how much the top-down thinking still prevails. It's almost impossible to get rid of that monster because Satan is alive and well. Top-down thinking prevails. But you don't have to be the one of them.
All right. Well, let's get to it. So, Nelson, in addition to what you've shared about use it or lose it, it also indicates on page 35 that there was a follow-up story in Fortune in May of 1995 that was titled EVA Works, but not if you make these common mistakes.
Yeah, right.
And what I'd like to do, similar to what we did in the grocery store, is just draw some parallels between the 5 common mistakes and the process of becoming your own banker. And I have to give credit to one of our colleague practitioners, Mike Everett, who shared this in conversation and really got me to think differently about this particular page. And what he had shared was that, so the first common mistake with EVA is that they don't make it a way of life.
Right.
And the parallel being that you can put a policy or a system of policies in place, but if you don't embrace the process and implement it within your own life, and if you don't make it a way of life, it's a mistake.
Sure. Yeah. Again, VC is about learning how to live.
And secondly, most managers try to implement EVA too fast.
Yeah, right. Yeah, see, that's what the guys down in Mobile and Montgomery, they wanted to get this in the past tense. We got this. We checked that off on our list of things to do.
Right.
But as far as making a way of life,
and we live in a society of instant gratification, and that's not what the process of becoming your own banker is all about. You're going to need the use of money for the rest of your lifetime.
Yeah, we're right back to the elephant killers in Africa then. Now what do you do?
And the third mistake is that the boss lacks conviction.
Yes.
The parallel being that if the policy owner is not disciplined in making this a way of life and lacks that conviction, then we're afraid that it may not last. It may not work.
There's that temptation in every walk of life, I guess, out there to make some tiny variation from principle. Well, that makes the second one easier, and that makes the third one easier than that. And after a while, very short period, you made a fish hook turn and never knew it happened to you. Incremental deviations aren't good at all. This is one thing that Leonard pointed out about Mises big time was he stood ramrod straight. And see, let's go back there to that thing that we talked about earlier about FDR and half paid by the employer and half by the employee. If he'd been called down immediately, no, that is a lie. That is not true. The employee is paying it all. You're just confiscating that much from him right now because you think he hasn't got sense enough to do anything about it. But you see, this is paternalism. Paternalism is prevalent. People love to run other folks' life. Watch and see if that's not true.
The fourth mistake is that managers fuss too much.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. There's no question about that. That's out there big time. But
I've heard an expression before, and you may have heard the same, that when you're hunting for elephants, don't get distracted by rabbits.
yeah, absolutely. Exactly.
And so the parallel there of managers fussing too much to the process of becoming your own banker is where we see and have heard instances of folks getting hung up thinking that this is a function of rates. And that's where we take them back to the grocery store example.
Sure, yeah.
And then the fifth and final mistake of EVA is that training gets short shrift.
Exactly.
And the parallel to the process of becoming your own banker being that, again, we talk about the importance of never succumbing to the arrival syndrome and understanding that there's always something new to learn. But in order to do that, you have to remain connected to the process. You have to work with a good coach, and you have to be coachable.
Yeah, so that's what the practitioners program is all about. See, that's where we made our mistake back when we were first. See, again, this was Carlos's idea. We called it IBI at first. And we just invited any and everybody that wanted to be a part of the program to cough up and get a manual and go through it and so forth and become a member then. Well, that was a mistake. There's a mindset there that people bring to the table that is not compatible. And this is when I saw back from my singing experience at church that here's this wonderful guy that's at Samford University who's the head of the Department of Fine Arts. It's our minister of music, and there's nobody that even comes close to him. And so here's this young pianist who wants to go to the next level of his education, but before they would allow him, he had to meet a board. And so we made it a practice that from now on, anybody that applies has got to meet with the four of us on GoToMeeting for at least 30 to 45 minutes or such to let's find out this guy's brains like, what's his motivation, and is he a fit for this? And we've turned down 3 folks this past year. They just wouldn't be a fit. And there's several folks that used to have me to seminars and so forth. If they applied today, they would not pass.
One final point that I think is just so important to grasp from Use It or Lose It is that you indicate yourself in this particular chapter that many people are still caught up in the posture of thinking that the matter is a function of interest rates. And you go on to say that anytime you can cut out the payment of interest to others and direct that same market rate of interest to an entity that you own and control, which is subject to minimal taxation, i.e. life insurance companies, which they themselves do pay tax, then you have improved your situation. Could you expand on, have you seen that very same phenomenon over your evolution with the process where people are still thinking that the matter is a function of interest rates?
That is a hard one to get out of people's heads. You just have to be patient with them, like Rosenberg says in Fish of the Last Notice the Water, that you got to be patient with these people. And you got to also face up that they may never learn. It's just like I told you about 2 of my grandsons that I don't think that they will ever learn.
So even the developer, the pioneer of this process experiences that within his own family.
But you see, they've been to college. You want some real pain? One of them's an engineer. He's been out of college 6 years and never had a job. Well, it's the craziest thing that ever came along. To trust those people with your money has got to be the weirdest thing that ever happened. That's the easiest money that the bureaucrats can get to. So that's part of the design of things, that they know that if we can get people to do this, that we've got a guaranteed place that we can rob. Yeah, like several years ago, I was talking to one of the other guys here about a number of years ago doing a seminar, and I was pointing out how dangerous it is to have money in a tax-qualified plan. For instance, it may be 35 years, I forget, and I need to go look it up. Brazil went out in the boonies and built a new capital city, Brasilia, from scratch. You can Google it, map, site. Anyway, where did they get the money to do it? They confiscated all the reserves on pension plans and so forth. Yeah. And I said, to follow that up, Argentina did the same thing. Well, God is good. There was a young man in the group that grew up in Buenos Aires, and he piped up and said, yeah, every 5 years, fund builds up, gotcha. Fund builds up, gotcha. They can't stand to see it get too big. They got to go spend it somehow. They invent some kind of tragedy of some kind. See, everything that goes on in capital cities, Ottawa is the same way. It's fear-based. Everything is fear-based. In fact, I'm leading a movement to change the name of Washington, D.C. to the Fear Factory. They create a problem, and then they present a solution to solve the problem they created. And the pattern is there. You guys do have a copy of Pattern for Federal Takeover Your Business, don't you? Mm-hmm. Okay. See, I ran into that. I was 30 years old at that time. Yeah. But Tate Trussell saw that thing perfectly. The author of that article. Did I tell you a few years ago, Mary and I looked him up?
No.
Yeah. Paul Cleveland helped us and so forth, and found him. He's retired up on the eastern side of Lake Michigan and whatnot. And he was startled to get my phone call and so forth. And so we had things to do in Michigan, and so we made an appointment to have a cup of coffee with him at his home and so forth. That was fun. But the pattern is there. And here's another thing that is always there. The guys that come up with these harebrained ideas always come from wealth of some sort. Now, one of the things that Tate cited in the article, Pattern for Federal Takeover Your Business, that the first U.S. forester was Gifford Pinchot. He predicted in 1907 that within 2 generations, America would be without timber. It'd all be gone. We'd be the Sahara Desert. There's more timber than when DeSoto came through here 300 years ago. But there is wealth. All right, so I'm going to tie you in one more thing. Y'all ever heard of a woman named Mary Pinchot Meyer?
I think I've heard you mention.
You do know who JFK was?
Yes.
Shucks. All of a sudden, I can't think of Meyer's first name. He was the head of CIA. He was married to Mary Pinchot Meyer. Mary Pinchot Meyer was a classmate of JFK. Meyer and his wife divorced. She was the favorite mistress of JFK. She was murdered on a walk in Washington, D.C. shortly after JFK was murdered. There's a connection between JFK, RFK, Marilyn Monroe, and Mary Pinchot Meyer that people don't know about. But invariably, you'll find somebody with a bunch of money involved.
And you even say that you'll find yourself engulfed in confiscatory taxation if you're the least bit effective at accumulating wealth.
Yeah. Yeah.